Welcome to 10-Minute Type Advice by Personality Hacker. I'm Joel Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
This show features questions from the Personality Hacker community that we answer in about 10 minutes. We've been using personality types in our coaching for years, and we'd love to answer your questions about personal growth through the lens of type. You can find out more about us at personalityhacker.com. Okay, now let's hear today's question.
My name is Rita, and I'm an ENTP. So I was wondering, an ENTP does have a lot of strengths. However, I regularly feel like my life would be a lot more simple if I was a J-type. I love the perceiving process, and I think a lot of my strengths lie there, but I end up really feeling scattered a lot of times, and I would really benefit from more of a routine, but that's just not my default state. So I was wondering if you had any recommendations for personality types and wanting to aspire to be another personality type.
Thanks, Rita, for the question. So fundamentally, you're saying, I think my life might be better. It might be easier if only I was a different type. There's so many talents and skills that come with other types that would apply to my context, my life. What do you guys think about this? Is that something like maybe I can aspire to, or should we aspire to that?
Yeah, this is a grass is greener type of question.
Yeah.
And I think that there is something to be said for admiring the talents that other types bring.
Do you? Do you have a type that you aspire to be, Antonia? Are you like, man, I wish I was like this. It would be so easy if I was an ENFJ. Life would be so easy.
It does feel like that sometimes. I don't know about a specific type, but I have frequently admired people who are feelers. I think as a woman, being a feeler would be a lot easier. I have thought that many times.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and I have thought that my career life would be easier if I was a judger.
Yeah.
It does seem like that. So I guess ENFJ would be it, huh?
Mine's ENTJ. I feel like, man, if I was an ENTJ, I'd be able to see down the road. I'd be able to execute on things. I'd be able to build this big business and have tons of success.
Yeah.
But I know a secret because I know personality type.
What's your secret? That
there's costs and benefits to every one of these situations. And, as much as I would want to be an ENTJ, man, I love my sophistication around my introverted feeling, my authenticity. And I'd not have that as much. That'd be sad.
Yeah, I'd lose my introverted thinking or accuracy. Or I wouldn't lose it. If I was an ENFJ, I'd still have it, but I wouldn't have my relationship to it. So there is a sense of admiring what other types bring, and I think that's legitimate. It's a good way to offset and balance out what's called type patriotism. And Isabel Briggs Myers came up with that phrase, type patriotism, which is, my type is the best, right? And on some level, we believe that, right? I mean, if you really put my back against the wall, I wouldn't change types. I would continue to have ENTP preferences. And that's because it's the devil I know, right? And there's a lot about this type that I think needs to be well represented in the world.
Oh, it's a devil for sure.
Yeah. It's the devil everybody knows, ENTPs. Well, that said, I have often thought that, oh gosh, it would be so nice to have judger preferences. My life would be in order. I feel like my office would be organized. My room wouldn't be filthy. I wouldn't feel like, my bathroom sometimes feels like if I got murdered, the forensics team would have a very difficult time trying to figure out who killed me because of all the hair they'd have to deal with. That's mine and yours. And then I feel that sense, and it burdens and gets intense, and then I clean the bathroom and take care of all the hair, and then it just happens all over again. And I go, I'm a disgusting slob, and I got to clean up this hair. So is that too much information?
No, it's fine.
I feel like if I was a judger, I would have solved this by now, right? Like, no matter when I got murdered, the forensics team would have an easier time of discovering who did it.
Mine is, if I was a judger, I would know what to do with my clothes when I change into my pajamas at night to go to bed, then drop them on the floor going, I could probably wear those pairs of pants tomorrow. I'm not going out anywhere.
Yeah.
I'm just guessing a judger would have a solution for this. They would just know what to do. And I'm like, I just kind of bumble my way through this and always have.
I know. It feels so infantile, doesn't it? It feels like we're children. We don't know how things work. And you give me a microphone and you just go, hey, talk about this thing. And I can just talk about it endlessly, which I think other people go, how do you do that? How does that work? So like you said, everything comes with costs and benefits. And I think, well, there's good news and bad news. I'm going to deliver the bad news first. The bad news is no, you cannot change types. No matter how much you admire a different personality type and all of their strengths and all the great things they bring with it, we are pre-wired to experience the world with the cognition that we're given. And there is a lot of great stuff that comes along with that because it means we can build a lifetime of skill on top of these talents. That said, that's the bad news. Can't change types. The good news is that you can do type development, meaning that you can explore the wide range of cognitive functions that you have access to and create habits, routines, and fold in some of the talents of these other, of other personality types, so to speak. You're never going to be at the level they are. A judger is just always going to outperform perceivers when it comes to outer world organization if they've built skill on top of talent. And I think that's maybe something that should be sort of bifurcated, this idea of talent and skill.
Yeah.
When we are pre-wired, we come with certain talents, which means that we have a natural aptitude toward different things. But talent is not skill. Skill has to be built on top of talent. And skill is generally when we're encouraged to hone those talents and turn them into practical application, and that we get better and better at it and we get more and more competent. So a judger that's raised in a context where they are, say, discouraged from being organized and they're punished for it, and I have actually seen judging types be raised in families that discourage them from organization. When they become an adult, they haven't built skill on top of the talent, so they always have this desire and need for organization, but no skill in knowing how to do it in an elegant way. And so that judger is not going to be enviable. They're going to be in a bad situation where they're also trying to figure this all out, but also having the desire that is hard to meet. And the opposite happens with, perceivers that are raised in very judger contexts and environments that would probably outperform the previous judger I talked about. A perceiver that it's very insistent that they be organized all the time, and they have built skill on top of not the talent, right? They didn't have talent to begin with. They might not have an intrinsic drive, but they were taught to do so, so now it's habituated. And that perceiver is actually going to be more organized than that judger, most likely. And so the good news is that we have life experience, we have contexts and situations we can put ourselves in, and we can build skill even if we don't have a natural drive or talent for something. And I think as perceivers, I don't think that we want our lives to be as regimented as a judger's life. We need it to be organized enough. Like we need to hit a certain, you could call it like a law of diminishing returns, enough so that we're not hamstrung by it, enough so that our lack of organization isn't sabotaging us. And that's well within our abilities to do as perceivers. So a lot of it is a matter of getting outside of what could be called one-sidedness. This idea of having to stay in just our dominant and auxiliary, or what we call our driver and co-pilot functions, getting outside of that and exploring the 10-year-old and 3-year-old functions, or the tertiary and inferior, building a relationship with those functions that is enough to support the lifestyle that we want to live. Now, some ENPs, we're talking about Rita's an ENTP. I'm an ENTP, you're an ENFP. We're very sympathetic in this conversation. And most of us don't have a life that requires us to schedule things down to the minute. Most of us have, if we've created any sort of ergonomic life to our personality type, most of us have a little bit more flexibility in our schedule. We've ensured that to be the case. And we usually don't have a life that has a lot of logistical burdens on us. We have a freedom fixation, so we tend to want to let go of those things that are burdens, that limit our free movement. And if we have a lifestyle like that, then what we're really admiring is the ability to, all the stuff that we have to take care of, that we do it in a more routinized way, taking care of our bodies, making sure that we're consistent with meeting deadlines, those kinds of things. And that's not this high level, this is not this inaccessible amount of judger tendency. This is a very accessible to all human beings level. For ENPs, this would be about, as I mentioned, getting out of one-sidedness, not insisting on always being in our driver and co-pilot, but exploring more of the 10-year-old tertiary and the 3-year-old inferior. For you as an ENTP, or at least I'm going to tell you what I do as an ENTP, is I use my extroverted feeling or harmony 10-year-old or tertiary function to set up social, it's almost like I do things to make sure that other people aren't mad at me. I set up social parameters to hit benchmarks and deadlines that if I don't hit them, I'm going to now have to deal with conflict. I'm going to have to deal with somebody who's salty. So I use that to my advantage. I use that as a motivation technique. If I have to get something done, I say, I announce it. I'm going to do this by this time. If I've got to create content, I tell people I'm going to be at a certain place and I invite them to show up with me. And that means I stay more accountable to the things that I have to get done. And I think the real struggle of my life, and Rita, I apologize if you're older than this, but it sounded like you're young, right? You had a young voice. You might be older than I'm expecting, but if you are young, it is hard to harness that 3-year-old or inferior function. The younger you are, the less access you have to it in a more sophisticated way.
Yeah.
And so I would say that over time, developing a greater appreciation and relationship to that 3-year-old function of introverted sensing or memory means understanding the value of what we call rhythms, right? They don't have to be hard routines, but the rhythms we get into life based on what I did yesterday and what I did the day before, and sort of getting into this slipstream of rhythm. And eventually, when you're in a slipstream of rhythm, you find yourself in routine. Now, you're going to be derailed. This is the great aha and insight of my life, is that no matter what routine I've set up, no matter what rhythm I've set up, I am going to be pushed off that path. And I think this is what judgers know. They just know this. They know that they're going to have disruptions to the routines. And so they do two things. First, they build in obstructions to those obstacles, like as in they protect themselves from the disruptions, number one. And number two, they know that if they can't protect themselves from the disruption, they just got to get back on the horse. Every time I got disrupted, I was like, oh, okay, well, I guess I never get to have that ever again, right? I guess that's just a routine I never get to have ever again. Now I realize it's much more difficult for me to get back on the horse. It takes much longer. But I have to do it. That's me making peace with that 3-year-old or inferior, is going, it takes a while, but I got to get back onto that routine. And so I've just made peace with disruptions. I've made peace with the fact that it's going to go off the rails, and I've got to take as long as I need to take to get back and find my way back to there. And if you do that enough times over and over again, you'll find that you have enough quote unquote judger tendencies, enough routine, enough ability to hit those markers that even as an ENTP or a person with ENTP preferences, you'll still have the life that you want. It won't be this big pain in the ass to constantly try to be like wrangling yourself in and making the deadlines and figuring things out. You just have to figure out what your law of diminishing returns is and hit that.
I think of all the intuitive types, maybe all the types, but I'm definitely thinking this about the intuitive types. I think the ENTP personality has some of the hardest time executing the outside world on like a timeline and projects and things. I think it's a big struggle because, and I would say the other type would probably be INFP, but at least INFPs have that 3-year-old function of extroverted thinking or effectiveness that kind of shows up for them at certain moments, where the ENTP doesn't have that effectiveness. And I think, Rita, you're speaking to that. Like, I wish I had effectiveness to get some things done. And I do think I've seen in our over decade of coaching, I've seen ENTPs struggle time and time and time again in getting traction in life. And so I think it's a real struggle, especially for this personality type. I do want to make a more philosophical comment as well, just to kind of close this out, that the world is giving us messages and it's attempting to divide us against ourselves. Like, it's constantly telling us to divide against ourselves and to not like who we are and how we show up to the world. And if it can't divide us against ourselves, it'll at least distract us against ourselves and say, well, what if you did this over here or that? And again, ENTPs, much like my own personality type of ENFP, I think we're very highly distractible. So even if we're not divided against our own selves, we do get distracted and sidelined very easily. And I just want to remind us that we're okay as we are as people. We should not be divided against who we are. And wanting to be a different type doesn't really honor the talents and the skills and the values and all the things that you bring as your unique wired self. Yes, the world might be set up for other types to play in that space more easily, right? Judgers have set up our world and we all play in that space. And it's a beautiful thing, actually. It really benefits all of us. And there are a bunch of powerful things that ENTPs and other types that don't necessarily play in that world as nicely or as easily bring to all of us. And we need those things. We need you, Rita, to be an ENTP with ENTP preferences, showing up as your ENTP self, not trying to get into effectiveness and become an ENTJ or something, right? We need you to show up that way. You need you to show up that way. So I just want to make that comment again, that don't let this idea that, oh man, other types, it would be so much better. I mean, I think this too, right? We talked about this at the very beginning of the show. If I only was this other type, this would be better in my life. And yeah, but there's also costs to that. They're going to have their own challenges as well. We all do. So I think this idea of being divided against ourselves is something we cannot allow happen as people. Thanks, Rita, for the question. You can ask your own question about personality types or personal growth. Visit personalityhacker.com/questions. We also have programs designed to help you with your personal growth through the lens of personality types. Again, visit personalityhacker.com and find the program that's made just for you. My name is Joel Mark Witt.
And I'm Antonia Dodge.
Thank you for listening to 10-Minute Type Advice by Personality Hacker. We'll talk with you on the next episode. If you're focused on personal growth, I think you'll resonate with our core content over at personalityhacker.com. We want to see you understand how your mind is wired so you can generate motivation, improve social skills, find career opportunities, and master excellent decision-making. But a quick warning, we are advice and action focused in all of our articles, podcasts, and videos. This means that we attract people who like to be challenged to become excellent, to take action, to put in the work to optimize themselves, not simply just gather more information. If you are committed to personal growth and ready to radically find your inner truth, then come over and be a part of our growing community of like minds at Personality Hacker.